Hey, what's up guys? Rick Cordell, RunPlayBack. So today I'm going to talk about something that I think is kind of embarrassing for me, and it's all of my financial mistakes that I've made throughout my entire life. Where I'm at right now mentally is a lot better, and I think if I could share what I did, looking back, all the mistakes I made, maybe it can help you guys to not make those same mistakes. When I went to college, I thought I was going to major in computer science. That didn't work out. I went to engineering school for a year and a semester. And that was really the moment where I felt like kind of guilty that I was kind of wasting money. And most of it was my parents' money. They were really fortunate to help me go to school. I wasn't really great at school. I didn't have a scholarship. So for me, it was really like the fork in the road where I had to decide what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So then I ended up moving back home, going to art school, commuting to an art school. And that was really important to me because I felt like, I wasn't wasting any more money, and it put me in the right direction of where I wanted to go. One of my first real jobs was when I started working at this place called Masterdisc in 2004. It was a mastering facility. I was doing DVD menus, designing things like that. And really the reason why I wanted to work there was because it got me into New York City. Now from 2004 to 2007, it was kind of turbulent, so I was able to get these gigs, these design gigs at different companies, and I was in the corporate system. So there were benefits, I was receiving benefits, but I really didn't know anything about, my retirement, my 401k, and I didn't really take advantage of any of the programs. I can't even remember if they offered anything or if I was offered anything. I didn't really want to do the corporate thing. I still wasn't completely happy. I went freelance full-time from about 2008-ish to 2013. And this is where I was doing all my music videos and getting a lot of accolades and awards. But the problem was that I was so focused on that, I didn't really pay attention, again, to my taxes or my 401k or setting aside any money, saving, working a lot, making money, but not having any financial guidance. I really didn't come from a family that taught me a lot about finance. And it was something, frankly, that I didn't want to pay attention to be honest. I thought that, I should just rely on the people around me to help me figure that out or take care of it. This was also around the time where I got that Sprite commercial. Now, that Sprite commercial was really cool. It was the one where I was featured in it. I was paid as talent. And I made something like $50,000 plus royalties just for being in that commercial. Probably not a lot because I wasn't like a celebrity, but it was a really great opportunity and really the easiest money I made in a day. What happened was for that year, because I didn't file my taxes properly, I got hit by the IRS with an $8,000 bill, which was crazy and crazy stressful for me at the time. It was one of my first big losses. I also made a bunch of indie movies at the time that I thought would get distribution. They didn't. They cost money. I borrowed money. I was able to pay back most of the investors through the jobs that I was doing, my freelance jobs. But it was also, again, like a loss. It was making these movies and feeling like there was no return on investment. I was so emotionally invested in making the thing that I was pushing back against common sense. It wasn't about money. And maybe that's just why the things I made at the time were special. So next is my biggest financial mistake. This is the most embarrassing one. And this is something that I relive plenty of times because I'm able to share the story with a lot of people that I talk to about money. This was in 2012, and I invested in a real estate property with my business partner. I didn't know anything about real estate. Jobs were getting slower for me. So I wasn't really in the right headspace to make a decision like that. Someone said, we have a property. You don't have to pay for it. It'll cost $1. We'll put it in your name. We have to take out a loan, a home equity loan to renovate it. And then you'll start getting paid as tenants move in. If it sounds shady right now, then that's pretty much what it was. And I didn't know. I didn't know these things happen to people. I didn't realize that the people that you're supposed to trust that are supposedly looking out for your best interests really aren't. And it was a hard lesson to learn, but that's what happens when you're being stupid. So you can imagine what happened next. And it was a series of unfortunate events with this property. So the first thing was the tenants stopped paying. I didn't even know who the tenants were. I didn't know, I just assumed that my business partner and his management company were taking care of it, but they weren't. So the tenants ended up leaving and trashing the place. Then Hurricane Sandy happened, which ended up having more damages to the property. It was around this time where I was like, this is not a good deal. I was still getting paid. I was getting like rent, but it was very sporadic. I had to sometimes ask for it. It wasn't like an automatic thing. Now it's 2013, okay? My savings, the money I got from this Sprite commercial, the money from these gigs, and this investment property that was looming over my head, just all came crashing down. The stress I just couldn't take it. So I knew that I had to stabilize this by getting a gig. So I had to go back to the corporate grind. So I got a gig. I started working at Pop Sugar, that women's digital media site, and I met some great people. It was a really cool opportunity. A good friend of mine got me in there. So basically, I kind of had to humble myself and start working back in this corporate, environment. All of the things that I was used to and sort of being spoiled for a really long time. Being a director on set, I had to bring all that down, bring my ego down and everything. And that was sort of like one of the steps to get me back on track of fixing my finances. Eventually, I worked my way up to a more lucrative role at Complex Media. So I was working in the editorial, and then I eventually became a creative director of video marketing. And it was just a great opportunity, met a lot of great people. And then an even better opportunity arose when I went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and started working with Duo, one of the hot new startups in Michigan. So now this is 2015. Now, mind you, the property that I had, and this was in Jersey City, this real estate property, was still there. And it was still, the idea was that we were trying to transfer and sell it. But from 2013 until 2015, there still hadn't been the right buyer. I was sort of leaving it up to my business partner and the attorney, and they would tell me one thing and then tell me another thing. So when I opened up a new account, wanted to start fresh in Michigan, so I went to a credit union, and they basically showed me my credit score. And my credit score was disastrous. It was terrible. What I saw was that there were no payments being made to the mortgage of the real estate property for several months, and I freaked the F out. I called my business partner. I was like yelling, like, what is going on here? I thought you were on top of this. I thought blah, 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 blah. The toughest part was trying to deal with this, in a new place, do my best, starting over, starting fresh, having a positive attitude. But this thing that I thought I had left behind was still pulling at me. This would begin months and months of communication between my business partner, the attorney, and the assurance that we found a seller. Oh, there's this issue, there's that issue. Then I'm getting hit with creditors, getting hit with summonses. It was bad. They were after me. I didn't even really have the full story. I really didn't know what I got myself into. I had to dig back into the banking forms to realize what I signed. And it felt like a movie. On one hand, I could just wait this out and weather the storm and just trust that this would get taken care of, that the property was in, a pretty good area, that there were buyers, that, we'd sell it, pay the bank off, done. On another hand, I'm thinking these guys could probably just abandon me. So I had to really kind of dive in, make a lot of phone calls, and just be really annoying and just stay on top of it. 4 years later, the house was finally sold. The bank was paid off. Any creditors, any liens on it, all paid off. It was kind of surreal. It was kind of like, did this really happen? And I had to kind of make calls. I called the bank to make sure that this, they got paid. I called the lawyers that were after me and made sure that was squared off. They're like, yep, case closed. It was on the verge of foreclosure. And if you know anything about real estate, even if you don't know anything about real estate, foreclosure is bad. It'll screw up your credit for 7 years. More than that. It'll do even more damage than that. I got the satisfaction letter and it was done. So boom, my credit score bounced back up. I was on Credit Karma, tracking it, and just seeing the progress, and it was crazy. It was really crazy. Without a doubt, this was the toughest, most stressful thing that I ever had to deal with. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of things, but financially, this was the worst thing I ever dealt with. It was a really helpless feeling. It was a feeling of defeat. My self-confidence took a huge hit, which absolutely affected my work. I made a really bad mistake during a vulnerable part of my life. And that's not an excuse, but that's what happened. I trusted people that I thought had the best interests of mine, but they didn't. But even if you made a mistake like mine, or maybe worse, there's ways to pull yourself out. There is light at the end of the tunnel. For me, it was pivoting into the tech industry and working really hard and providing value and getting back to what made me a music video director. It was about the service. I was at service to the story. I was at service to my clients, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and it showed. The passion showed. And when you're unhappy and when you're stressed out, it's really hard to perform at that high level that you know that you're capable of. And so I was struggling a lot about what is it that I can't do? Why don't I enjoy this? It's because I had these financial stresses in the back of my head that was affecting my work. And I realized that if I could fix that, then I'll have a better way. I'll have a better path. I'll know exactly what I want to do. The decisions that I made that brought me to coming back into the workforce, humbling myself, trying to work hard to get better, to make more money, get promoted, pivot into tech, coming out to Michigan, working for Duo, being really happy and trying and challenging myself. It led to some good luck because Duo got acquired by Cisco Systems, which I mentioned before, and it was a big acquisition. And there were equity awards. I'm not going to get into the details of that because it really isn't about the money. It was being at the right place at the right time. It was an opportunity for me to catch up on what I lost. I really felt like I was behind from a lot of my peers, from people my age who worked hard, who were smart, who wanted to have a good life for their families, who learned all of this way before. They weren't blinded by celebrities and entertainment, celebrity worship, comparing themselves to others. Other good things started to happen. We live really modestly. Like, we don't live beyond our means at all. We got a house. We knew exactly how much we wanted to spend, and we were able to get it. And that was tough because I had this property still on my credit. So I wasn't able to get a conventional loan, but I got something called a portfolio loan. So if you look up portfolio loan, it's basically a specialized loan that the bank gives you. It's not a loan that can be sold. It's based on, your assets, your employment, and a bunch of other things. It's basically like a common sense loan. And I have to refinance in 7 years once my credit gets fully rebounded from the hit I took from the real estate property. So from 2013 to 2020, because I was living modestly, because I didn't want to make the same mistakes, I was able to wipe out any of my outstanding debt except for this mortgage. It was all about paying our bills on time and living below our means. If we don't have the money for it, then we don't need it. I was watching a lot of Dave Ramsey. I was watching a lot of Graham Stephan videos. These two guys have tons of stuff on YouTube about finance, and watching their videos really helped me to figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. As far as Dave Ramsey, I tend to watch him a lot more because I really can relate to him. He went bankrupt in his 20s. He lost everything, and that's kind of how I felt. I felt like I was on the verge of losing everything, and I was able to just escape it narrowly. Not everyone can get second chances like that. So I felt really blessed. So right now we're actually on Dave Ramsey's baby step 4, which is growing our retirement accounts. Now I'm looking at, how do I want to live during retirement? And it's kind of cool now, we're at this stage that I can start thinking about that. Aside from working and making money, living modestly and saving money, it's really about generosity. That was the one thing that really increased when we moved out to Michigan, to Ann Arbor. It was about, how do we contribute to the community? How can we be generous? That really kicked off when we started working on videos for a local teen nonprofit called Neutral Zone, and working with their team, working with the teens, creating videos for them, creating fundraiser events for them. It really felt good to give back. I also created the A2 Tech Film Showcase, which is a film showcase here in Ann Arbor that highlights diverse perspectives. And this is something that I wanted to do to empower other filmmakers, not just young dudes or young dudes of privilege, to have an opportunity to show their films in the historic Michigan Theater, 1,500 seat theater. Because of this, I also got invited to be on the board of directors of the Michigan Theater. Now I have a voice in bringing more things to the community. One of the big things that Dave Ramsey says is that generosity builds wealth. I'm starting to believe it now, because even before I got out of this situation with the real estate property, even before there was any kind of, before I even understood what equity awards was, it was really about being generous and contributing something and helping people. And I really, really understand that it comes back. Call it superstitious, to believe in good karma. That's how we've always lived our lives. Me, Nancy, our daughter, that's what we teach her. And the world rewards you. I don't mean for this to sound spiritual or anything, but it really does work when you give back, like truly from the heart. That's the one thing that I really learned from Dave Ramsey's show, is that generosity builds wealth. I had to stop chasing money. I had to stop chasing this illusion of who I thought I was going to be. I had to just chase generosity and focus on generosity. And that ends up building the wealth. It ends up removing the debts that you have. It ends up making you work better and happier. No one wants to work with someone who is just like always unhappy, who has a chip on their shoulder because of something else. Fixing all these things, all these financial mistakes, really helped me channel all this energy into being positive, and it's affecting everything else. And it's kind of why I want to share this, why I'm creating this video. I never thought I'd talk about this on camera, but there it is. So that's all I got. I hope you guys got something out of this. I hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. And if you have any questions or comments, leave it on the channel or hit me on the blog at runplayback.com. Peace.